Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. We are coming to you live from the WION headquarters in Noida, India. Let's get started. Will the Democrats replace Joe Biden? The Democrats are currently in panic mode over Joe Biden's debate performance. Serious questions are being raised, a lot of concern. On Gravitas tonight, we tell you why Joe Biden's performance has triggered a heated debate. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. Who will be Iran's next president? What has the mood on the ground been like on election day? We get you a Gravitas special segment live from the electoral battleground with our correspondent joining us on the broadcast with the very latest from Tehran. Who was targeting the Maldivian president using black magic? What really happened? What's the story here? We tell you all that you need to know. This is a story that you do not want to miss. India are through to the summit clash of the T20 World Cup. After outclassing England, we get you a special report. All this and more coming up tonight. Stay with us. If you are an American, would you really want a mumbler and jumbler as your president? And if you are not an American, would you trust a person with a chaotic memory to take decisions of the world? If you have been following the news today, you probably caught the first US presidential debate for the 2024 race in what felt like deja vu. US President Joe Biden faced off against his Republican rival and former US President Donald Trump. They discussed the economy, immigration, also the COVID-19 pandemic. But as the debate got heated up, people were left wondering, are they really the two men left to be leaders of the United States of America? The men supposed to be the leaders of the world in a way? But perhaps nothing shocked people more than the president's shaky performance. Biden faltered during the debate, struggling to be heard and mumbling his lines at times. This left the Democrats in a state of panic. As per reports, minutes after the debate concluded, commentators were openly discussing the possibility of replacing Biden on the ticket. So, the question is, are the Democrats ready to shove him aside? Will they really replace Biden as their candidate before it's too late? And more importantly, can Biden be replaced? Was Biden's debate performance that bad? Yes, it was. Just have a look for yourself.
What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% or 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
That was Joe Biden stumbling over his words during the debate's first half hour. We finally beat Medicare. That's what Biden said in a gaffe. And Donald Trump immediately took advantage of that.
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare.
Now, if you thought that was hard to watch, here's more. Take a look.
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag.
According to reports, strategists close to potential Democratic presidential candidates reportedly being flooded with text messages throughout the debate. The text messages ranged from suggesting an alternative to Biden to key donors expressing concern, but acknowledged that not much could be done unless Biden steps aside. More than a dozen Democrats told American outlet Politico that major Democratic donors as well as Biden supporters have suggested that it was time for Biden to end his campaign. Those concerned have described Biden's performance in the debate as the worst in history. They argued that it was so poor that it would overshadow Trump's lies. The overwhelming response was that Biden needs to drop out. You see, for weeks now, Democrats had hoped that a strong performance by Biden in the debate could alleviate concerns about his age. However, it had the opposite effect. You know what that means? The pleas from within the party reflect a major turn in the campaign. Sure, incumbent presidents have underperformed during their debates. After all, such is the demand of the job. But the debate on Thursday was different because it proved Biden's detractors right. A conception that Biden as a candidate is past his sell-by date, which brings me back to the question, will it actually result in a change atop the ticket? Because even those who privately complained about Biden's performance acknowledged one fact: whether or not Biden remains the Democrat candidate can only be decided by one man, and that is Biden. They admitted that not much is possible unless Biden himself steps aside. Technically speaking, the party has a system for nominating a fresh candidate at the convention, but that is if the candidate declines the nomination. There is no mechanism by which other party leaders can throw Biden off the ticket. If anyone in the party wants to replace him, it is through throwing it to an open nominating process on the convention floor. But never in modern times has a national party in the United States tried to force an election candidate to step down. The entire process is a complicated one, which is why it has not been considered an option in decades. Plus, trying to remove Biden would mean overturning the results of the state primaries. The votes that took place earlier this year that confirmed Biden as the overwhelming pick for election in November. In this year's primaries, Biden won around 95% of the nearly 4,000 delegates. If Joe Biden were to choose to step down from the race, the Democrat Party would face a complex and also uncertain process of selecting his replacement. Who will it be? Potential candidates for the nomination could include Vice President Kamala Harris, as well as governors Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, and several others who could be placed in nomination. An open and contested convention would involve more than 700 party insiders playing a significant role in picking the new nominee. It could lead to a potentially contentious and unpredictable situation. And amid all of this uncertainty, Biden's endorsement would carry substantial weight in influencing the selection process. Sure, Vice President Harris might have an advantage due to her current position. Nevertheless, garnering the support of the party insiders would be crucial for Biden as well as Harris. And Harris's unfavorable poll numbers could pose a huge challenge in winning over key figures within the party. Even if Kamala Harris were to secure the nomination easily, she would still require her own vice presidential candidate, leading to a contest among the party's rising stars to be her running mate. Since declaring his bid for a second term, Biden and his team have consistently maintained that he is running for re-election. He has dominated every primary and caucus. He has secured over 85% of the total vote. However, the significant pressure stemming from a poor debate performance, also declining polling numbers, could alter that reality. Now, we know this is a possibility. If Biden is considering withdrawal, time is of the essence here. Let's now shift focus to Iran, where polling was underway to select the next president after the sudden death of President Ibrahim Raisi in a recent helicopter crash. This left a leadership void. Voting was taking place under the specter of conflict in West Asia, of course. Also a struggling economy and social discontent. It is also the first presidential election in the country since the death of Mahsa Amini sparked massive demonstrations. Voters are placing high hopes on the next president. They have to vote for one among the tightly controlled group of 4 candidates loyal to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Listen in to some reactions.
I want to say to the people, we must do ourselves for our country. We don't want to wait for someone to come and correct our situation. We must do ourselves. This is important for me.
The snap elections could be the most important ones for the country in decades. This is a Gravitas special broadcast with our correspondent Anas Malik joining us live from Tehran. He's been tracking the very latest from the electoral battleground. Anas, thanks for being here on the broadcast. Let me begin by asking you for a sense of what the voter turnout has been like. Tell us more about the mood on the ground.
Well, it's festive. It's quite charged. For the first part of your question with regards to the voter turnout, it's about it's over 7 p.m. The voting time officially was till 6 for 10 hours. The voting time now has been extended by 3 hours. It is to continue till 9 p.m. local time. And if I just get aside for the benefit of our viewers, I'm behind the polling station. The lines are still extending till far outside the polling station. There are women, there are children, there are men, there are youngsters, there are families who are there even now, even 11 hours, almost 11 hours into the polling time. And now, even now, we are seeing these scores of people right outside the polling station. And this is just one such polling station. You're seeing these lines all across Tehran. I've been down and out from north to the south, to the east, to the west, to the center where we are right now. And you see similar scenes. Not once, despite the fact that it was a hot, humid day, it was 38 degrees today, not once have you seen these lines getting slower or getting smaller. In fact, all what they did was that they kept on getting bigger and bigger. So you get a sense of the voter turnout, that the voter turnout definitely has been good. Though Masoud Pezeshkian, the candidate from the left reformist party, his team has been saying that it was not as per their expectations. They say that it could have been much better. Molly?
Right, Anas, this election coming at a sensitive and crucial time for the country, given what's happening in the region, given that this comes after the deaths of Ibrahim Raisi. You have been interacting with the voters on the ground throughout the day. What, according to you, are the key issues that have dominated this contest?
There are three key issues for these elections. First is the economic crisis that the country is battling with, then the rising inflation levels. There's a talk of good and bad diplomacy vis-a-vis neighborhood, getting closer to the neighbors, building more bridges, and of course talking about job security, because a greater chunk of this population, out of the 61 million that are voting, these are young people, young men and women who are either just passing out of the university or in university between the age of 18 and 35, and they believe that they have a bleak future ahead, so they want to change their fate. And this election, these turnouts, these numbers, be when it comes to the younger generation, or be when it comes to women, most of them under the ambit of the restrictions of that of a headscarf or a covering. Despite of that, they're coming out in numbers is a testament that these are standing issues and they would want their fate to change by the power of the vote. Wally?
Anas Malik getting us those updates from on the ground in Tehran. Thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast. Of course, coming back to you as and when we have further updates. Politicians often frustrate the people, but how far does that frustration go? They will be held accountable. They will be asked tough questions. People could also decide to not vote them into power. But using black magic on politicians, that is unheard of, right? Well, that is exactly what happened to the president of the Republic of Maldives. Guess what? It wasn't angry voters or foreign agents. Two serving ministers from the president's own cabinet have been arrested for allegedly performing black magic on the president, Mohammad Moizou. You heard that right. Shamnaz Salim, who was a state minister at the Environment Ministry, and her ex-husband, Adam Ramiz, who was serving as a minister at the president's office, along with two others, have been arrested. You ask what the motive was? You'll get no answers. Because the Maldivian police has declined to share any information about the reasons or the alleged performance of black magic. Now, before we go any further here, what is black magic? It is a type of magic that is used for evil purposes. Sometimes it's called witchcraft. It's a type of magic that is believed to use evil spirits to destroy or harm someone. That seems to be the standard definition of black magic. Still, whatever it means, it certainly does not bode well for Mohammad Moizou. The fact that two of his ministers were trying to use whatever means they could to try and harm him or target him raises serious questions. Was there some sort of rebellion against the president? Is there a rift in Moizou's cabinet? Why did the ministers resort to witchcraft? Do Maldivian politicians believe in the occult? Why did the police feel the need to arrest the ministers over this? There are many questions, but no answers. Now, we would not attach a lot of meaning to it. After all, these practices predate religion, science, philosophy, and modern politics. What we do know is that all three of the accused have been remanded in custody for 7 days. Both the ministers have been suspended from their posts. Incidentally, both Shamnaz and Ramiz have worked with Moizou as members of the Malé City Council when he was serving as the city's mayor. Ramiz, during his time at the Malé City Council, was known as a close aide of Moizou, in fact. However, he has been absent from public life in the past 5 months or so. Neither the Maldives government nor the president's office have made any official comment on the issue. It seems that they're also struggling to accept that someone was using black magic against the president. all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah inevitable now? Will the escalating tensions spark a regional war? Things seem to be heading in a very dangerous direction. Have a look at what's happened. In what is being called Hezbollah's biggest attack in weeks, it said it fired dozens of rockets at a military base in northern Israel in retaliation for Israeli strikes on Lebanon, announcing 4 of its fighters had been killed. Hezbollah said its fighters bombed the main air and missile defense base of the Israeli Northern Area Command with dozens of Katyusha rockets. They said this was, quote, in response to the enemy attacks, quote unquote. It also claimed 2 other attacks on Israeli troops and positions, including one with drones. Meanwhile, Lebanon's official national news agency reported Israeli attacks in several areas of South Lebanon on Thursday. It also said a strike a day earlier in Nabatea wounded more than 20 people when a 2-story building was targeted. And what has Israel said? As per the Israeli military, approximately 35 launches were identified crossing from Lebanon. It added that air defenses successfully intercepted most of the launches and no injuries were reported. Not just that, it also said airstrikes, quote-unquote, eliminated 3 Hezbollah operatives and that 2 UAVs, drones, that were identified crossing from Lebanon fell in northern Israel, reporting no injuries. Let me also tell you what the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said on a visit to Washington. He said that his country does not want war in Lebanon, but was ready to inflict massive damage on Hezbollah if diplomacy fails. He said, quote unquote, we do not want war, but we are preparing for every scenario. Let's just take a step back here and just put these things in perspective for you. All of this is coming at a time when there have been growing fears and concerns about an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah, which, in one word, would be catastrophic. Also note here, Hezbollah is far more powerful than Hamas. We told you earlier how the US has drawn the red line on Hezbollah. It was a stern warning. America basically warned Hezbollah to not assume that the US can stop Israel from attacking them. This was as per a Politico report. So US officials who are trying to prevent a bigger war are sending out a strong message to Hezbollah as per that report. The message from the US has been clear that they cannot be counted upon to stop an Israeli attack. And that was aimed at getting Hezbollah to back down. American officials have recently also made their way to the region in order to attempt reining in the two sides. So serious efforts have been made to dial down the tensions. In fact, there have been a series of Western diplomatic efforts in that direction. On Tuesday, in fact, the German foreign minister visited Beirut and cautioned that miscalculation could trigger all-out war, also urging extreme restraint. On Thursday, France's foreign ministry also said that Paris was extremely concerned about the fighting, calling all sides to exercise the greatest restraint. But then, is an escalation inevitable is the question. One spark could set the entire region on fire. That's something that the world cannot afford. Moving on for now, Sudan is at the risk of facing the world's largest hunger crisis. World Food Programme has warned that there is a realistic chance of famine across 14 areas in the country. Take a look at our next report to find out more.
Sudan is facing an unprecedented hunger crisis that may be about to get worse. That's according to a global hunger monitor backed by the United Nations on Thursday. Its latest analysis showed a realistic chance of famine in 14 areas across the country if the war escalates. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, or IPC, says more than half the population is experiencing a hunger crisis. Around 750,000 people are projected to be in catastrophe, the most severe level of extreme hunger. The World Food Programme reported that some Sudanese are already eating leaves and soil to survive. On Thursday, it called Sudan's hunger crisis the worst in the world. Eddie Rowe is the WFP's director in Sudan.
We are in a race against time, not only to have enough resources, but also to be able to deliver these resources to people who are on the verge of starvation. We are looking at half of the country. Over 25 million Sudanese are categorized as acute food insecure.
Rain Paulson is a director with the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization.
Just to be clear then, these latest findings mark a stark and rapid deterioration of the food security situation compared to the previous IPC update released, as I mentioned, in December 2023.
War between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces broke out over a year ago in the capital and has quickly spread to other parts of the country. The 14 areas at risk of famine are those that have seen the heaviest fighting. Famine can be declared if at least 20% of the population in an area suffers catastrophic food shortages, with at least 30% of children acutely malnourished and 2 people out of every 10,000 dying daily from starvation. Residents say the impact of war and hunger are already becoming apparent.
At certain age of children, you'd notice their growth. Before the war, you would usually notice different stages of growth on children during periods of 6, few months, or a year. When the war happened, these children not only stopped growing, but their sizes even reduced. The stages of growth may be delayed or even non-existent.
UN experts are accusing both rival factions of using food as a weapon of war by blocking, looting, and exploiting humanitarian assistance. Both groups have denied impeding aid.
Croatia is still trying to establish the fate of the missing people from its 1991 to 1995 War of Independence from then Yugoslavia. Early this month, investigators found the remains of 10 war victims at a Croatian garbage dump. Our next report telling you more. Take a look.
A grim search is underway in Croatia for the remains of victims killed during war more than 3 decades ago. Earlier this month, investigators found the remains of 10 people at this garbage dump near Vukovar, about 180 miles east of the capital, Zagreb. They expect to find more. It took 2 years of searching to find the mass grave. This site has been described as the most difficult and complex location investigators here have ever encountered. Ivona Paltineri heads the Department for Missing People in the War Veterans Ministry. We are still looking for 1,797 missing people, she said about the whole country. They've been missing since the country's War of Independence in the 1990s from Yugoslavia, which dissolved into separate entities. About 150 mass graves have been found in Croatia. At this specific site, workers have unearthed nearly 320,000 cubic feet of waste, digging nearly 50 feet deep. Investigators believe the 10 victims were moved after initially being buried somewhere else, as the remains were covered with earth and sludge that's not typical for the site. Paltineri said that probably happened in January of 1992, after the temporary occupation of Vukovar. The city was reduced to rubble by the Yugoslav army and Serb paramilitary units in late 1991. Investigators hope DNA analysis will find a match for the remains from about 10,000 people who are looking for missing relatives. According to the International Commission for Missing Persons, 11,600 people are still unaccounted for from the Balkan conflicts in the 1990s.
Do you remember the Hollywood film Gravity? Yes, the film that showed astronauts facing the risk of space debris. Believe it or not, something comparable took place just a few hours ago. It all unfolded in space, about 400 kilometers above Earth. And over the next few minutes, we will tell you more about the constant risk faced by astronauts. The International Space Station, a football field-sized orbiting lab, it's been the home for astronauts for almost 25 years. The ISS circles 400 kilometers above the Earth's surface. Every 6 months or so, a new set of astronauts goes to live on the station, and those who have completed their mission come back to planet Earth. A mission typically lasts 3 months or more. Right now, there are a total of 9 astronauts living on board the ISS. 6 of them are American astronauts, 3 of them are Russian. Each one of them is there for conducting a unique function, from science experiments to spacewalks to carrying out repairs of the space station and its numerous components. We know that the space station and thousands of satellites are circling planet Earth. However, there are also other man-made objects that continue to circle the planet. These are basically pieces of space debris. They can be rocket parts, broken parts of satellites, flecks of paint and whatnot. Space debris multiplies because humans keep sending things into space. Collisions between space objects only generating more and more pieces of large and small debris. Here's the NASA data from the year 2022. More than 25,000 pieces of debris larger than 10 centimeters are known to exist. The estimated population of particles between 1 centimeter and 10 centimeter in diameter is approximately 500,000. The number of particles larger than 1 millimeter exceeding 100 million. The problem with debris is that it travels at very high speeds. The small and large pieces of space debris travel at 10 times the speed of a bullet, and at such speeds, even a minor collision can cause immense damage. And one collision leads to more pieces of debris, and there is an ever-increasing risk of more collisions as well. What you must have seen in the film Gravity was an over-dramatized version. The Hollywood movie showed how collisions with space debris can threaten the very survival of astronauts in space stations. However, as space gets increasingly crowded, there are always possibilities of collisions and astronauts taking shelter, fearing such a danger. As per agencies that observe space debris, the latest threat emanated from a defunct Russian satellite. The satellite is believed to have exploded on its own and generated 200 pieces of debris. The mission controllers of ISS alerted the astronauts about this risk as the debris was in the vicinity of the space station. Therefore, the astronauts were urged to take shelter. In such cases, the astronauts take shelter in their respective spacecraft. This is similar to boarding a life raft when the main ship is in danger, for example. Right now, there are 3 such spacecraft docked to the space station, 2 American and 1 Russian. For the set period of time, astronauts Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore boarded the Boeing Starliner craft, which has been facing technical issues, remember. 3 other American astronauts and 1 Russian astronaut boarded the SpaceX craft. The remaining 1 American and 2 Russians boarded the Russian Soyuz craft. If in case a collision proves highly dangerous, these craft could be steered back towards planet Earth. However, the space station and its 9 astronauts safely escaped danger this time. Within an hour, they could get back to work at the space station. However, one major question still remains unanswered. When will Sunita Williams and her fellow astronaut Butch Wilmore return to Earth? What is the status of the Boeing Starliner craft? Given that the astronauts boarded Starliner during an emergency offers confidence, but it is really for Boeing and NASA to confirm. In a few hours from now, Boeing and NASA are expected to offer a status update, in fact, on the much delayed return of Starliner. Let's now shift our focus and talk about what China's new Common Prosperity Campaign means as far as its financial industry is concerned. As a result of new regulations put in place to comply with President Xi Jinping's Common Prosperity Plan, the era of big paychecks to Chinese financiers is coming to an end. Our next report getting you the complete story. Take a look.
China's major financial enterprises requested senior workers forego deferred bonuses. In certain instances, they have been asked to return money from prior years to adhere to a pre-tax maximum of 2.9 million yuan or $400,000. Some companies like China Merchants Group, China Everbright Group, and Citigroup have sent these instructions to their staff in the past few weeks. Some mutual fund managers are pressured to return the excess pay above the limit earned in previous years. China's crackdown comes as part of Xi's effort to promote economic equality. Beijing has demonized investment bankers, fund managers, and other high-earning members of the banking industry as hedonists due to their extravagant lifestyles. Banks and brokerages have reduced salaries and other benefits as the Communist Party has taken a firmer grip on the $66 trillion financial industry. Several Chinese mutual fund managers propose capping staff salaries at about 3 million yuan. The proposed caps mark a drastic shift from the era where companies doled out big paychecks to lure top talent. This comes as China has begun its first comprehensive investigation into graft since a corruption scandal rocked the sector in 2021. The scandal involves some of the country's biggest state lenders, the central bank, and important regulators. At least 130 financial officials and executives were investigated or punished in 2023 alone. Chinese authorities have intensified their crackdown on cadres and business executives they deem corrupt to stabilize the economy and avert systemic financial problems. China's economy is struggling to regain momentum as confidence has cratered among domestic consumers and international investors. Banks have been urged to step up lending, but demand is weak for new credit. The real estate market is still in a deep slump, and foreign investors have shunned the stock market. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
The world's biggest software maker, Microsoft, has revealed that Russian hackers called Midnight Blizzard, who broke into its systems early this year, stole emails from its customers. And this revelation comes about 6 months after the tech giant first disclosed the major breach. The disclosure highlights the extent of the breach as Microsoft faces growing regulatory scrutiny over the security of its software and systems against foreign threats. The Russian government has not responded to the Microsoft hacking accusations. However, as per Microsoft, the Russian hackers had targeted cybersecurity researchers who had been investigating the Russian hacking group's actions. In a move to control the damage caused, Microsoft has assured transparency with its customers by providing regular updates on the situation. In a statement, it said, and I'm quoting, "This week, we are continuing notifications to customers who corresponded with Microsoft corporate email accounts that were exfiltrated by the Midnight Blizzard threat actor." Microsoft is also sharing the compromised emails with its customers. However, it has not revealed how many customers have been impacted or how many emails may have been stolen. The tech giant added that it is committed to sharing information with its customers as the investigation continues. In January, Microsoft said that Midnight Blizzard had accessed a very small percentage of the company's corporate email accounts. 4 months later, it said those hackers were still trying to break in, alarming many in the security industry regarding the software maker's system vulnerabilities. These intrusions, along with a Chinese hack last year that also stole emails, led to a congressional hearing early this month. And during the hearing, Microsoft President Brad Smith said the company is working on overhauling its security practices. Shifting focus, India are through to the summit clash of the T20 World Cup after outclassing England in Georgetown, Guyana. India have been the most consistent team at ICC events over the past decade, but a trophy has proved elusive. Rohit Sharma and his team will take on South Africa on Saturday, with fans hoping for that long trophy drought to end.
Not too many in Indian cricket will forget this day. The 19th of November 2023 was to be the day the drought ended. India had ticked all the boxes: 10 straight wins, a stadium